Hello everyone and welcome to Kickstarter update number 20 for Divinity Original Sin the board game. My name is Kieran, I'm the product manager over at Larian Studios, and today we're going to be going over a number of things happening with the board game. Namely, we're going to be talking about our playtesting schedule. We're also going to be looking at some of the new artwork that's being created, just to follow up from last month. And we're also going to call Josh over at Linvander and deep dive into one of the mechanics that's been improved on thanks to the stretch goals that were unlocked during the campaign. Namely, we're going to be talking about crafting, we're also going to be talking about the new rune stones that we've been able to make because of that. But the one thing that's important to us that we've noticed through the various feedback we've been getting with the community is that you guys want to hear from us more. And so we're going to move from this point on, we're going to be moving to monthly updates. And that probably doesn't mean monthly video updates like this, but it will mean that we'll be communicating more, we'll be telling you how playtesting is going on a more regular level. And yeah, speaking about playtesting, and we're going to be going to our first group of playtesters in the next week or two. So we're really excited to see what they do with the game, how they experience it. We're lining up a bunch of questionnaires and ways of getting feedback from them, and we're going to collate all that information as we get it, so we'll be able to iterate as they play. But once it's complete in about 6 to 7 weeks, we'll have a large list of information that we'll be able to use to iterate on the game for playtest 2. So while we're doing these monthly updates, you're probably going to hear about the playtest a little bit next month because we'll be in the midst of it at that point. But then I'd say by September, I'll be able to share with you some of the insights that we've been having from those updates, from those playtests, and we'll be able to basically tell you how we're planning on iterating, or where we're seeing people maybe get confused with the rules, or perhaps there's some issues with their play experience that we're not necessarily seeing in our internal playtest, right? So we're going to jump into a call with Josh now from Linvander, and we're going to deep dive into the stretch goals and what they mean for the game, and how crafting and runes have been improved. All right, let's do that. Hey Josh, how are you getting on?
Kieran, not too bad, thanks.
That's good. All right, so Josh, you know what we're here to talk about today? We're going to be diving into crafting and rune stones. But before we get into that, do you want to just in case people don't necessarily know what you're doing or what your responsibilities are, do you want to get into that with me? And I know that you're basically in charge of two major things, which is the development of the game and the rules and the systems, but also the manufacturing and the production and the art side. So can you dive in and just let people know exactly what you're involved with in Linvander and on the Divinity Original Sin board game?
So, I'm Josh, I'm with Linvander Studios. I wear many hats, but for Divinity, I would describe my role most accurately as content developer. So I'm doing a lot of the design for enemies, some of the boss design, the items, the skills, a lot of that stuff. Dylan, who's our other main designer, has been handling a lot of the narrative and kind of overall adventure of the game. And the two of us together are basically doing all of the game design portion.
But development-wise, I guess it's easy to say that you and Dylan had a lot of challenges, in a good way, a lot of great challenges, because of the stretch goals and the various options that those unlocked for us. We got time, and we had room to dive in and perhaps expand on certain things that we wanted to or that we couldn't before we went to Kickstarter, right? So the big one today would be the rune stones, but they would also the crafting system. Now we're going to pull up the crafting window right now. Do you want to expand a little bit of what that new stretch goal has done to the crafting in general as part of the game?
Yeah, so our $1.2 million stretch goal in the Kickstarter was for the expanded crafting. As you can see looking at this table, everything in black is a card that existed in the prototype when we launched the Kickstarter. All of the cards that are marked in red on the grid, and the grid of squares is cards that you get in your crafting deck. All those red squares are new cards that are the result of expanding the crafting system. But if you look at the axes on this chart, you also see a bunch of new things that are also listed in red. There's 3 new crafting material tokens, Farhangite, Druidine, and the Tormented Soul. Those are 3 new ingredients. And then we have a new container as well, which is the Runestone.
Yeah, I mean, like on a very surface level, we nearly doubled the amount of items, right? We're now on 40 where we were 22. Just even having 3 extra options in terms of ingredients is interesting. But like, where was that space? How did it actually? Was it interesting to add that in? Was it something that you felt limited before, or what are the challenges now that we've added in extra content for the crafting specifically?
Right. So I didn't feel like there was anything missing per se from the crafting deck. There was a good range of like, oh, I need to craft this if I'm going to heal. I craft this if I want area attack damage. I craft this if I want some kind of buff. We were just able to add even more variety to that. For a given container, most containers and most tokens actually have combinations. Originally, it was about 50% of the grid was full. It's now closer to 70%. So one of the side effects actually of the expanded crafting is we've actually given you're more likely to be able to make a match. So now it feels even better and triggers more often. But this also means there's more of a decision point about what the opportunity costs of crafting something are. Because if you've got a really awesome ingredient, like a yarrow flower, all of those items are going to be healing related generally.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is whether you want to combine it with paper to make a resurrection scroll, or whether you want to combine it with like an arrowhead, which is one of our new recipes, to make healing arrows, so you can shoot people for healing damage. And the game has now been balanced to the point where we know you have a bunch of crafting materials, so the encounters are hard enough that if you're continuously tempted to use and make them to make your encounters a little bit easier, or to find exactly the right solution for the thing that your party wasn't necessarily prepared to face. You know, if all of a sudden you're coming up against a gang of enemies that have air damage or a low resistance to air, maybe you're hanging on to those materials to make a tornado scroll at will, so you can deal with them.
Well, and as you say, as you go into augmenting, you're basically segueing into runestones, right? Because those crafting materials are going to enhance my choices for combat and for encounters. But then nothing does that like the runestones, and the runestones are a brand new addition thanks to the stretch goals. So, like basically on the very basic level of what a runestone is, it allows me to customize my equipment, right? Yeah,
pretty much. I would say that the runestone is an equipment card for your equipment card. So you could use them to augment what your weapon or armor does. Those of you who know DOS 2 really well, there were 5 elements you could make with runestones. We've added a 6th one, which is specifically for physical attacks. That would be the sharp runestone. But basically, the way that these now work, they really are an extra tool that you're going to make and hold on to, and then use to augment what your weapons can do, so that your party can almost respec the kinds of damage it does against certain kinds of enemies. That can be really powerful because it can let you then target the weakest resistance of a monster rather than swinging your sword normally and trying to get through its tough physical armor.
I was going to say that was one of the conversations that we would have had before, where what's great about the runestones is that augmenting the party makeup, right? So if you find out halfway through the game, you know what, guys, we probably haven't necessarily focused on fire damage enough or poison damage enough, something you don't necessarily want to do. And so if you're with runestones, that allows you then to augment on the fly if you encounter a particular tough. It doesn't mean that you've built your characters wrong. If anything, you can kind of supplement some of the weaker areas, or in fact you can even double down on some of the stronger areas of your attacks with the runestones.
On the flip side, you can attach them to armor, and a rune adds +1 resistance to that type. So a poison rune, a venom rune adds +1 poison resistance. Can be really helpful when you're coming up against tons of enemies and you just want to like buff your defense stat a little bit better, because essentially every time you get hit and you've got that runestone equipped, you're saving 1 hit point, and characters are not that durable, so that really adds up.
Perhaps it's more minute, but to be fair, it's an important case-by-case situation that you're going to encounter as a party, where when you're going into an encounter, it's giving you a whole lot more decisions to make, and not necessarily huge, monumental, difficult decisions, but very interesting decisions for how you're going to particularly tackle an encounter, right? So, yeah. I mean, overall, these stretch goals, the runestones in particular, are the most exciting part, because having those options that allow me to be either more defensive or more attacking focused, and literally change that on the fly. I think our players are going to have a lot of fun with that.
Oh yeah, we've really been enjoying them in our testing.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you, Josh, for joining me today. And we're going to be talking to you a lot more over the course of the update schedule as we do more of these video updates and we have more of these conversations. We'll touch base again. I guess we're going to be talking about production soon. We're going to be getting our white box in the future. I know that we're talking about soon. We're getting the PU models and stuff like that. So yeah, lots to talk about, and we'll be in touch again.
Manufacturing is moving ahead nicely, so
yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. Get the box in my hands. It's going to be great. All right, brilliant. Thanks very much, Josh, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Kieran. We'll see you later.
That about does it with Josh and the expanded crafting stretch goal and also the runestones. And I hope that conversation with Josh really showed you just how much that one stretch goal in the campaign really has fleshed out what was a great mechanic as part of the experience, but now has become a very important, even more important choice that you as a party will have to decide on how you use your items, use your crafting items. And then also, do you craft permanent things like the runes? Do you craft consumables that are maybe very useful for that particular time? That'll be up to you. And all those choices are going to really add to your experience as you play through the campaign. So that about does it for what we wanted to talk about today. But I just wanted to reiterate and discuss briefly about artwork. I'm going to show you some of the cool new art that we've been working on over the last few weeks since the last update. You're going to see an example of an enemy card that we've been working on, and we'll be getting more of those as we continue. We've over 10 artists working on the project right now, and they've been working very closely with our designers to make sure that the cards are not just looking good artistically, but also working mechanically and narratively as well. Next update in August, we'll probably dive into another one of the stretch goals maybe, or maybe we'll do something mechanical. We'll just see how it goes. And then also I'll be able to update you on how playtesting is going. I'll be able to show you some of the new artwork that we're working on. And yeah, that about does it for this update. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you again for backing and supporting us back at last year. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.